Today's Locked On Thunder podcast. The Oklahoma City Thunder flood the Suns. Are they the most dangerous team in basketball?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and Inside the Thunder beat writer, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LO Thunderpod. Folks, the Thunder, without SGA, just absolutely flooded the Phoenix Suns. 128-103, the Thunder get a massive win. And I think that this game really shows you just how dangerous this Thunder team can be and will be in the postseason. You're going to see a Thunder team that can match up with a lot of different looks and a lot of different teams. And the first selling point about how good this Thunder team can be and about how dangerous this Thunder team is the fact that when you look up and down this roster, especially if Josh Giddey is peaking at the right time, and again, it doesn't have to be 30 points a night, but shooting this way from inside the arc, which is very repeatable, and he's finding a way to score at the rim. He's getting better at using his body. All those things are improving for him. If that continues to go into effect, you have Chet Holmgren and J-Dub, who are two rising stars, and at times, J-Dub has looked like a superstar for a large majority of this season. You have some shot variance from Lou Dort, but whenever he's been with Shai and a full complement of characters, Lou Dort has been an efficient three-point shooter, which will be massive in the playoffs. So you have to feel really good about your starting five, and especially your starting five. This month has been awesome. I mean, it's been like a plus 30 net rating, because of how good Josh is playing. But even if that number comes back down a little bit, right, to like a plus whatever, 10 or whatever, like you want to say it's going to come down to. Well, then in the postseason, the minutes for your starting five automatically go up. You automatically play your starters more and your stars more. Then you have to find 3 to 4 pieces each night who can help you win games. And that's why I think this Thunder team is dangerous. I think this Thunder team is dangerous because of their depth, which is never something you hear about the postseason. But you have a coach who's willing to flip through the Rolodex of players until he finds the right combination. And in a 7-game series, if you believe in what the starting five has done all year long, like even over Josh Giddey was struggling, the starting five had a good net rating. Now he's playing fantastic, and they just have an absurdly good net rating. So if you believe in the starting five, which I think that you have to at this point, because as we talked about this whole week, this success from Josh Giddey is sustainable, and this success from Josh Giddey has happened with Shai on the court, as well as these previous 2 games where Shai's not been on the court. So if you believe in that starting five, and I think that you should, at that point, the Thunder have to find 3 to 4 more guys to contribute on any given night. And they have to pick from Aaron Wiggins, who has done nothing but contribute in his career. He's always been a contributor. He's always been a guy who's brought energy. He's always been a guy who's made a winning impact. Gordon Hayward, Cason Wallace, Jay Will, Isaiah Joe, Kenrich Williams. Are you telling me that on any given night, you can't find 3 of those guys who are playing good basketball? The odds of that, the odds of all of them, Wiggins, Wallace, J. Will, Joe, Kenrich, the odds of all of them, Hayward, being bad on the same night is slim to none. So you have your complement of players. Then you have the MVP of this league in SGA in a star-driven league. Then you have one of the best defenders in the NBA on the perimeter in Lou Dort. One of the best, down low defenders and anchors in Chet Holmgren. A very switchable defender in J-Dub, who's also shown this superstar prowess to get to his spots, knock down shots at the elbow, and become automatic, going to his left. And to Jalen Williams' credit, playing a style of basketball that is a one-to-one translation to the playoff format. He's talked this season, whenever I've asked him about using his physicality more, he told me that the reason why you work on your physicality all summer is because you're working toward the playoffs. And he's done that, to his credit, in a big way. And he found a lot of success this season, and he'll find a lot of success in the postseason. And my biggest point in this being the most dangerous team in the NBA, one of the most dangerous teams in the NBA, is our good friends over at Locked On Suns. I was on Twitter during the game, obviously. It's my job. And I saw a tweet scroll by at halftime where our good pal, Brandon Clean, who hosts Locked On Suns, great show, go listen. He was asked what halftime adjustments the Suns should make. And he quote tweets the listener who asked him that. And he said, put KD at the 5 and put size around him and pray. That was it. KD at the 5, size around him, and pray. You're having to send thoughts to the heavens about this Thunder team who didn't have SGA. That's forcing you to send thoughts to a higher power in order to try to stop this Thunder team. That's how good they are. That's how dangerous they are. And that's how confident you should be heading into the postseason. Do not let any of the outside noise influence how you should view this team in the postseason, in the sense of the national media is going to lean on inexperience and size, frankly, because they have not watched this team. This team is so much more than lacking size and inexperience. Their inexperience point shouldn't even be talked about. Because while it's not, it's not boom or bust this season in the playoffs by any means, I'm also not going to limit this team and say that they can't do something. Because this team, whatever they do will be great. Like whatever they do is just fine, and you accept it for what it is, and you move forward and you keep plugging away, because this is going to be a long runway of success. But I'm also not going to say that they can't do it just because they're young, because this team has not shown that they're young all year long. They've battled through adversity at every turn and went and got to the other side of it. They've handled runs in games very well. They've stayed locked in for a full, 82 game season here in a few weeks. It'll be over, 2 weeks. So it's been 73 games so far where they've been locked in and playing great basketball. They still have not lost 3 games in a row. Like, this team has done everything possible to show you that they're a contender. You just have to listen to them. And again, that's not to say that it has to be a deep playoff run for this season to be a success. This season is already a success today. End of story. But it also doesn't mean that you should just think that they can't do something, they can't go far, because this is one of the most dangerous teams in the NBA. This is one of the most dangerous teams in the NBA. And I think that you should also take a cue from, of course, everyone around here who's watched the team very intimately will tell you the same thing. But also, look at what guys like JJ Redick are saying, LeBron James are saying, Kevin Durant is saying, like guys who have been in it, guys who have experienced it, and how much respect and admiration that they have for this young Thunder team? We'll talk about that coming up. But first, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at eBay Motors. Check them out today because eBay is great and they have the guaranteed fit, the guaranteed car to fit your ride that's going to keep your ride or die alive and make sure that you get the winning plays with passion, drive, and patience. It's going to keep your ride or die alive with over 122 million parts to choose from. It'll go there for you and have the best fits, the guaranteed fits every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're going to be burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. That's eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit. Available to U.S. customers only. And make sure you go keep your ride or die alive with eBay Motors. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Subscribe to the Lockdown Thunder podcast. Leave a like. Subscribe on Twitter, on YouTube, but also follow me on Twitter at Ryland_Styles. But subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, leave a review, all that fun stuff. I got to talk to Kevin Durant pregame in the locker room, and he just spoke glowingly about the Thunder, and he was very, great, in that setting. I asked him, what are some of the things that you, in your first playoff run that you remember now, looking back on it, that you couldn't have, simulated, or you could not have, practiced. You just had to go through it and then learn from it. Like you just could not have, seen it before you went to the playoffs. And he said, honestly, nothing. Like you have to realize that this is just basketball, and you've been playing basketball every day. Now, people are going to tell you it means more, and that the lights are brighter, and that everyone's watching, and they're going to be criticizing you louder in the playoffs. They're going to be praising you louder in the playoffs. It's going to work both ways, especially for a team like this. As a side note, like this Thunder team has not been on national television as much as like Boston has, throughout the course of a regular season. So this is going to be really the introduction of this Thunder team to the national world, and that's going to lead to a lot of praise because I think the Thunder will be very good, but also, of course, lead to some getting picked apart that you might not be used to. So, like, you got to deal with that. And Kevin admitted that, like, it was easier for them back then without social media, like, consuming your entire life. Like, it was around. Thunder U was great, but, like, it didn't consume you the way it does now, like, for all of us. So he admitted it was easier to kind of block out that noise back then. But still, he fully believes at every turn, and kept poking, trying to see what he felt, and he truly believes in this Thunder team, of that they have all the qualities of a young team who handles the bright lights and who stays locked in and who just plays basketball, plays with intensity, plays with the passion that you need to play with. And I don't want this to come off as making fun of Jared Allen, because I do appreciate that he was very open about this last season. But if you remember, whenever the Cavs were disappointing in the playoffs, and Allen admitted that, like, hey, this was not what I was expecting. The lights were too bright, so to say. I think he actually did say that. If you remember that, I don't think that this Thunder team will feel that way. I think that this Thunder team will be equipped to handle that setting, and that these guys are all winners, and that these guys are just have that it factor of not being fazed by any of that stuff. And Kevin Durant kind of echoed that sentiment and really reinforced that sentiment with the stories that he told. That's all his whole quotes and everything on this Thunder team are all on Inside the Thunder. So you can go check it out today. You can go to my Twitter account. The link is there. Also, just look up si.com/NBA/Thunder, and you'll get to the site. And you can see the Kevin Durant article where he discusses this Thunder team. He was very, very complimentary of them. One part about it that he mentioned, which I thought was interesting, because you can kind of couple it with another story. He talked about Mark, and he said that whenever Kevin was in Oklahoma City, Mark was the G League head coach, and it was only for the year. And he remembers that Mark was very quiet. Mark was very to himself. Mark was just always there. And even though he was quiet to himself, you could just tell that he was witnessing everything. He was, observing everything. He was being a sponge, Kevin said. And when you couple Kevin noting that about Mark, and remember, this is a guy who's a G League head coach and isn't very, expressive or out there to the players. He's very reserved, and still you could pick up on that. Like that's how observant he was and everything. When you see that praise from Kevin about him being a sponge, and you couple it with a story that Mark told from that same season, whenever I asked him a question about flipping the courts because the road team gets to decide what basket you start on, thus what basket you end on, and if you want that to be closer to your bench or away from your bench, and what the thought process is there. And he told a story about how in 2016, whenever he was just a back row coach and was up for the playoffs, because the G League season was over, he told a story that in Game 6, where Klay Thompson goes off, the Warriors flipped the court for the first time all year. And he felt like the Thunder weren't prepared for that. And from that point forward, he never let his guys get into a routine from the G League level all the way to the NBA level. He never let his guys get into a routine of, we're going to end this way. We're going to end toward our basket. We're going to end toward, or away from our bench. You never let them get into a routine of that. That way you're always ready, because that's something that you can't really control. So you have to be ready to do both, because, half the games, the other team's going to get to control it. So I thought that was a good story. And it was just a testament to, in the midst of this, chaotic series and all the pressure of it, and you're kind of just observing it, you notice something as minor as that detail of them flipping the court for the first time ever, and it leads to this, massive run, and you felt like your guys weren't really comfortable in that setting. So that attention to detail, and it being pointed out by Kevin Durant, who I don't think heard that pregame interaction of just a random tidbit of a pregame presser from a few months ago. Like you think back and you just see how the reviews are in, and Mark's a really good coach, and LeBron and JJ praised him as well this week. But I think that even though Mark's not done it yet, I have full confidence in the fact that he has done everything short of coaching the playoffs. He's studied everything. He's thought through everything. He's gotten to see firsthand how to and how not to handle situations. And so he's gotten the benefit of just kind of adapting and growing and learning all the way to right now. And while we're talking about Mark praise, I think that it was a great story from Cam Woods, who I talked to earlier this week, and I asked him, like, you're a guy that played for Brad Stevens, like you played for like legit like Hall of Fame coaches, and then you get to Oklahoma City and you play for Mark, who, like, no offense to Mark, like he doesn't have that pedigree of a Brad Stevens. He didn't play high level basketball. Like what got you to buy into Mark and like what he was selling you guys? And Cam talked about how it was just the trust that he had in Mark because of the unwavering consistency to the approach and to getting the players better, independent of what was happening on the court record-wise. He told a story that, like, in the first season together, the Blue were just awful. And I asked Mark about the story, and Mark said it was a disastrous season in terms of like the record-wise win-loss. And yet still, Cam said that Mark was always consistent and always putting the guys in the right spots, and that's how you could learn to trust him. He truly cares about getting you better as a player, and the results will kind of fall down as they come. And that sounds eerily similar to what's happening with the NBA team of, his first few years in Oklahoma City. You went 22 wins, 24 wins. And when you watch these two teams, like when you watch that 24-win team and you watch this team that has 51 wins with 9 games to go, the principles, the identities, like they're all the same. The approaches are all the same. You've gotten more talent. You've gotten more wins. But it's all stemmed from kind of the same things and the same consistency that Mark has brought. So I think that that's translated over too. And I think it's encouraging that even a guy like Kevin Durant, going back to that interview, we're jumping around a lot of interviews here, folks. I'm sorry. Going back to the Kevin Durant interview, like he mentioned that from the outside looking in, you can just tell that the players trust Mark. You can just tell that, like, he is someone who the players believe that he is putting them in the best position to be successful. So if you agreed with the first segment of like, and that was where you get you running through a wall, like the first segment of how good this team is on the court and how good their rotation is and how good that their stars are, then you should absolutely believe in the second segment of Mark being one of the best coaches in the NBA and being a guy who you should have faith in to orchestrate a playoff series, even though we haven't quite seen him do it yet, and we will here in a couple of weeks. And it's exciting stuff of what's going to happen, this year and what's going to happen here in the future. But this game against the Suns has to get you feeling good. We'll talk more about it coming up. But first, I want to say right now, but our good friends over at Amazon, go check them out today. It's the Amazon Fire TV channels. Fire TV is your destination for both sports, live games, highlights, and in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers you the amazing viewing experience with smart TVs, as well as a Fire TV stick that you can plug into a normal TV and provide access to millions of movies and TV shows, as well as free live TV. Whether it's opening weekend of baseball, the college basketball tournament, or you're just wanting to have the Fire TV, go check it out today because Fire TV has recently created a Fire TV channel to deliver you a constant supply of the best videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes us at Locked On and most of the pro sport leagues and college conferences as well. So Fire TV channels lets you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on the latest in the world of sports from March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on the Fire TV and Alexa devices that you haven't had yet. You should go check it out today because Fire TV channels is there for you. It's great. Trust me. Learn more by visiting Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV, Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Sixth pot of the week. Really fun week of shows today. This week, yesterday's show was really fun with Michael Martin talking about bold predictions. One of my bold predictions was that Josh Giddey would average 25 plus points per game in the last 10 games of the season. And he gets 23 points tonight because the Thunder were almost too good. Like, he only got to play 24 minutes because the Thunder were just blowing out the Suns. And he had a great game. In 24 minutes, he put up 23 points, 9 assists, and 7 rebounds with a block as well. He also had a great post-game press conference. Like, he had a lot of great stuff from on the court stuff to off the court stuff. I want you to go to Andrew K. Schleck's Twitter account. He tweeted out the whole video of this interaction that I'm going to discuss right now. And I think that I'm going to paraphrase it, but I think that you should go listen to his own words and him talk about it. It's really important. But to paraphrase it, he mentioned how what's really changed for Josh is that the night before he was going to play a team who was going to dramatically play a big on him and like dramatically play off of him, it would like consume him the night before of just the pressure of it and the fear and the fret and the dread of it. Dread was the word that he used, and the dread of having to play a big man and having to hit your threes and the pressure of I've got to hit this three. And you can see how if you're thinking that way and then you start like 0 for 1 from 3, it just has a snowball effect to it, especially when, again, if Josh Giddey hits his peak of his powers, 1 percentile ceiling, he's not going to be this amazing three-point shooter in the sense of that's not going to be his best skill set. So it's even more pressure of this is a thing that I'm trying to prove to the world I can even do. And now I have to do it to beat this coverage. That's the way that he was thinking before. And he said that what's kind of switched for him is he had a conversation with Mark, and they've of course had ongoing conversations this whole year. But he's had a conversation with Mark, and Mark really reined him in, if you want to call it that, of just like explaining to him of like, there's more than one way to beat this kind of coverage. There's more than one way for you to be impactful if you're not hitting your threes or if you are. So just take a beat and get back on track. And I think that's where you've seen Josh Giddey get kind of back to basics of what he's been good at of his career as a prospect to a pro, what he's been good at. He's been good at quick decision-making. He's been good when the team gets out in transition. He's been good, at getting to his spots for these floaters that he's leaned on since his rookie season and now are going in at a higher clip. He has a frame that he should be able to finish at the rim, which he's gotten much better at over the last few games. And he's gotten back to that, and it's led to some fantastic success for him. And I think that that'll continue. And I think that it was very, I very much appreciate it. I know that doesn't really matter. Like Josh does not care what I appreciate, but I do appreciate the fact that he was willing to be so open about that and not give some, cookie cutter answer of just like, well, sometimes shots go in. Of just like being open of like, yeah, I mean, I used to really dread having to play this kind of coverage. And you can relate to that on like a human level of yeah, I mean, we've all been there of things that that gave us, for lack of a better term, anxiety of what to do next, or how to discuss something or whatever. So I thought that was a great answer. Again, please go listen to the whole video cutout that Andrew did on his Twitter account at Andrew K. Schlecht to hear it in Josh's own words, because I think that's way more powerful than me paraphrasing. But another thing that he said that was just on the court, tough transition here, transitioning to just the most nerdy basketball stuff. I asked him about the ATOs that they run, and from the sidelines they run that play where it typically leads to SGA diving at the rim and he's wide open. And I asked him about that play because Wiggins took on the SGA role and it worked to perfection whenever they ran it in this game. And I asked him like, how much of that as a passer, like is it like a quarterback, like you're timing it up with your receiver? And how often, if that's the case, have you gotten to practice that with Wiggins? And Josh, took that and had a great story about how they've never practiced it. First of all, so like that was just a great, that was just a great cut by Wiggins, who understood how Josh passes from watching it from afar and then implementing it into his own game. But what was more interesting than that is that the play that has led to, like as successful as that play has been, it's actually something that the Thunder just did on the fly, because in typical sideline out of bounds plays, that cut through the paint that Shai does and has found success on is almost always a dummy cut. And so Josh just decided one day to start throwing the dummy cut, throwing the ball actually to that cutter who no one's paying attention to. And it led to such great success that teams have started to put a big at the rim to kind of counter it. And Josh, and I found this part extremely interesting, Josh said that he was caught off guard by the fact that they were game planning for sideline out of bounds plays, because I guess it's not really I guess you don't really see that a ton of like teams changing how they handle out of bounds plays, sideline out of bounds plays and baseline out of bounds plays. You don't see how they typically change their strategies a ton for a matchup dependent, like for say whenever you're playing just the Thunder, like putting a big at the rim. So I thought that was very interesting. Of like you wouldn't even think of that, because I think that we think of basketball and just sports in general at a professional level as this huge tactical chess match that nothing's slipping through the cracks, and apparently it's very abnormal to see counters to your basic like at a timeout plays and silent out of bounds plays. And then I asked him, on that same note, like you've also had another play that's been very successful for you when you're on the baseline and you just kind of skip it over into the long corner to Lou Dort on a bounce pass, which has been an abnormal pass to throw as an inbounder, a skip bounce pass on the baseline. But anyway, teams have started to position the guy defending the ball shading toward Lou Dort's side to kind of cut off that pass. Like, have you noticed that same thing? And what has kind of been the process of trying to counter that, since that was a play that really worked for you a lot? And he mentioned that, yeah, that's exactly what teams are doing. They are putting guys, and positioning their guy defending the ball toward Lou Dort so you can't get that pass off. And of course, they're going to work through and counter that eventually. But I thought that was very interesting that it's not the most normal thing for teams to be scouting, especially in the regular season, ATOs and slob plays and blob plays. I thought that was great from Josh Giddey. But he was awesome in this game. He was awesome post-game. And really, everybody was awesome in this game. I mean, the Thunder shot 56 from the floor, 53 from three, and 100% at the line. They dominated fast break points 15-6. I mean, they only lost second chance points by 2. They won points in the paint by 10. They lost the rebounding battle by 1. Speaking of rebounding, Yusuf Nurkic had like 1 billion rebounds. The last time these two teams played on March 4th, he ends up with 3. 1, 2, 3 rebounds in this game against Oklahoma City. The Thunder forced 4 more turnovers, and they just shot the cover off the ball, shot the lights out of the gym and get a big win against the Phoenix Suns with no SGA. Aaron Wiggins deserves a lot of credit for how he started this game. I think that, of course, what doomed the Thunder against the Rockets was their slow start. It felt like they were just too sluggish out of the gate. They still got it to overtime and then ran out of gas. Wiggins ensured that the starting lineup was going to have energy and have juice from the word go. Casey Wallace was great, and he got to do some more on-ball stuff, which was fun. Isaiah Joe, 4 for 7 from 3. He had it going, 14 points off the bench for him. Good Lou Dort shooting night, 3 for 6 from 3, and battled the best you can defensively, especially against Kevin Durant. And the Suns were fully healthy, but goodness, was Beal and Booker not Beal and Booker, Booker especially. Booker was just bad in this game, and just bad in the sense of he didn't even look like he wanted to be on the court, like he wanted to be in the arena in this game tonight. Chet was really good, 20 points for him, 6 boards, and again, these stats with a block, that's all in 27 minutes of action. It didn't require a ton of play from these guys. One thing to monitor as we wait for the injury report for tomorrow's game against New York, Gordon Hayward only played 10 minutes. He was very aggressive. He had 5 shot attempts in 10 minutes. I thought that was better for him, and Mark agrees. I asked Mark about that after the game. That was better for him, but he only played 10 minutes, and he was not really seen on the bench for a large chunk of this game. So we'll see if there's anything on the injury report about that. Also, Shai, of course, out with that quad injury, still tabbed as just day-to-day. What does that mean? Does that mean that they're going to play him against New York? We don't know. But Mark does say he's progressing well. So we'll see what the injury report says here in just a few hours. So until after that game against New York, be good and be good to one another.